Welcome to week 1 of Slasher Book Month. My name's Toya. So, since I can't afford to go to the Scream House to celebrate the 30th anniversary, I decided to celebrate by reading some Scream-inspired and Slasher-themed books throughout the month of May. So I decided to pick up a book called How to Survive a Horror Movie by Scarlett Dunmore. This one is very Scream-inspired. She does have a sequel which says How to Survive a Horror Movie sequel, which is not Scream-inspired, but still follows the actual character from the first book. In this book, we follow Charlie Sullivan, who is hoping to keep a low profile at an all-girls boarding school called Hargate. And they are on a remote island called Salty Island, which also includes a all-boys boarding school about 3 miles away. And it's just those two schools, so it's only just students, teachers, and staff members. Unfortunately for Charlie, she can't keep a low profile because there is someone killing off her senior class. And what's worse, she is now seeing the ghost of her former classmates. So with the help of the ghosts and Olive, her best friend, who she says to don't move with, they are now investigating the unfortunate timely deaths of the classmates, because the headmistress of the school and including the police are not much help. So with the help of Charlie Sullivan's best friend, Olive, who she says her dorm room with, and the ghosts, they have decided to investigate and gather some evidence of what actually happened to them, what the ghosts actually remember of their untimely deaths. And they put it on this board for investigation to narrow down who it could be. They have some suspects, and what they discovered was a common link is that the masked killer actually has a gold mask, which is very much a little bit like Ghostface, but I don't think it actually looks like the actual Ghostface himself. So I thought that'd be quite a fun throwback to Scream as well, because this is very Scream-inspired. Charlie is a horror enthusiastic, so basically she loves horror movies, Stephen King's, and she's very much like me in that respect, because I'm a big fan of those myself. And what I love about the books, there are like some references to characters or books or certain scenes that come from the movies or the books themselves, and there's like some funny puns and everything. So I'm assuming that the author herself actually knows a lot about the horror side of things, because I'm assuming she's a big fan of it herself. So that's a really cool aspect, because I love it when an author actually knows what they're talking about and they actually put it into the books. What I actually love is that Olive and Charlie has what they call a Slasher Sundays, where they watch horror movies, they do their research on how they should survive, should they be in a horror movie themselves in real life, where they take snippets of, for example, things like if you're wearing footwear, make sure they're trainers rather than high heels. That's one of the things I actually hate about horror movies, is that I understand if before something actually happens to them that they're actually wearing heels, but why would you continue wearing heels if you are being stalked, chased, or potentially killed by these, masked figures or what have you, and you're still wearing heels? It's not the easiest thing to run with, so I always do like a little laughing joke on that whenever I read about it in books or in movies, because it's just such a strange concept to just continue to wear heels, no matter how big they are. So that's one of the things I actually find a little bit annoying. But what I do love in this book is that instead of each chapters being chapter 1, chapter 2, and so forth, or just with numbers, it actually consists of rules 1 and rules 2, which I absolutely love, because it's taking rules for movies that you must sort of abide by, but like Randy from Scream and stuff, what you can and can't don't. So if you look in these chapters, they have like rules and little subheadings. Like for the first one is team up, so it's an indicator that you have to be that it's best to actually be paired up. So you've always got that little extra help and support and stuff like that. And in some cases, I assume that, well, if something's going to happen to them, better them than yourself, basically. So, and it just like continues on, even rule 2 in this book, beware of storms in isolated islands. I mean, that is a very good point, because storms are creepy in itself, and islands are the worst thing, especially if you cannot escape from the island. I mean, no one's going to swim miles in freezing cold water. There's chucking waves everywhere, so that makes it even more problematic. So, and I love every single chapter, even rule 4 tells you never walk alone. Especially at dark time, if you're going for, you know, the woods or wherever you go, you're not going to do that by yourself. Because I, for one, do not like being out after dark, even though I love dark time. I just find it a little bit more creepier to go out myself, especially since I am profoundly deaf as well. And that just makes me a little bit more on the vulnerable side. So it's just easier for me to go with someone else or just like stay at home. And even if I was in a horror movie, I would still never walk alone myself. I'll always pair up with somebody else. Or potentially I'll take my dog with me. So I don't think he would actually, you know, potentially kill a mastiff thinking, because he's a serial licker. He just likes to give kisses a lot. So that's quite funny anyway. So I do find that funny actually, because his name is actually called Dexter, which is named after the serial killer in the Dexter series. And so yeah, he's just a serial licker, but he just licks everybody to death. So yes, so all the rules in this book actually continue on in the second book. So I absolutely love that, because at the same time you're learning little something that you may have missed if you're watching horror movies or reading the books yourselves. And you start to learn a little something new of how you could potentially survive a horror situation, you know. So you never know. So that's the thing. So what I do love about Charlie in this book, she does have some secrets that she's brought with her to the island. We don't know them. You get little snippets of why she's come to the boarding school on the island and why she's in that position of who she is as a person. I mean, in this one, we get little snippets of her mother, but it's not a huge predominant character in the book, so we don't get to explore that relationship between the two. Not like you would, not until we actually get to the second book, but I'll explain that in a minute. So, and then you also have Olive, who is her best friend, and is actually her only friend, because Charlie ended up at the school midway through the academic year, which, if anyone knows when they've been in school and all that, to actually go to a new school halfway through when everyone has already got friends and everything, it is very hard to insert yourself into a group of people that probably suit your personality and so forth, or if you're in a certain clique, I guess you can say, in America, where you got the jocks, you got the popular girls, you got the nerds and whatnots and stuff. And Charlie didn't have that sort of thing, so she is best friends with her roommate. And I do like their relationship. I don't think in this book we explore much when it comes to Olive. We know a little bit about her and their relationship, but it doesn't seem to come as forefront as Charlie has with a certain character who is actually a ghost. And I absolutely love that character, and she became one of my faves. And you can tell that Charlie had a good relationship with her, even though she's feeling a bit uneasy about the fact that they're ghosts, because these do not look like traditional ghosts, I guess you can say, with the typical cloth over them, or someone who looks like Casper. These are ghosts that look like how they did when they met their untimely misfortune I guess you can say. And so you do get some little bit of a graphic details regarding that. So that didn't faze me, but it's quite interesting to see and quite sad at the same time, because I can see why some people are probably worried that when they pass, they'll be in their form or when they pass away. So I hope that does not happen, because God forbid if, you know. So anyway, so yeah, so I do like the fact that we get a little snippet of the relationship. I just felt like it could have been a lot more, considering that Olive is actually her only friend. And there are some scenes where Charlie's having to do certain things by herself, especially when she's trying to investigate. Olive is not there some of the time, and she's going about some of these investigations by herself. And I just think, well, you said it yourself in the book that you should not do certain things by yourself, and that you should always be paired up with somebody for safety and everything. There was a scene in this book that I was quite sick. I was quite scared for her, and because Charlie does come across as a very strong person, and yet vulnerable at the same time. And she really wanted to help investigate what's happening, because it doesn't actually help that people are suspecting her and thinking she's actually doing it, when obviously she isn't. I mean, she's the only one that can actually help, and she's putting herself in some dangerous situations just to find out some more evidence, to rule out certain suspects, and to get to the truth of the whole thing. Because there's some things happen with the ghosts in this, and that makes Charlie more determined to find out who actually did it and the reasoning why. But what's also sad is because Charlie's putting herself in these particular situations, she becomes scared, and there were times when she wanted to quit investigating because she didn't want to die. But I love the fact that she perseveres with the help of the ghosts and at times Olive. And we do get to the very end where the unreveal happens. And it was a really, really good reveal. I really enjoyed it. And I understood why, because it ties in a little bit with Charlie's secrets, her past life as well. So we have a really good connection between the two, because I don't like it when you get like a horror movie or a book where there is no connection to the main characters themselves, because sometimes I just think, well, what's the point of the story? Where's the connection? Because especially if a character is the main character, sometimes there needs to be a slight reasoning to why, and that just elevates the book and movies even more. And it came across really well in this as well. There were plenty of, when Charlie was figuring out who the suspect might be, there were certain people that I had in my list of suspects. So Dexter has come to join us. So this is Dexter. He is the serial killer that I was talking about. As I was saying, I had a list of suspects in my head based on what Charlie, Olive and the ghost thinks it could be. I had some of my own, and I ruled out some based on what was happening throughout the book. So I had a slight idea who it was, but for some strange reason I kind of ruled that person out, which I was very annoyed about, because there was a little scene in the book which is one of the reasons why I ruled that person out. But unfortunately, I shouldn't have done that, because it turned out that it was actually that person, and I was gutted that I've ruled that person out, because sometimes I'm quite good at actually figuring out who the killer could be and stuff like that, which is why I like these horrors and murder mysteries and stuff. My apologies for Dexter doing that. So I felt like this is the perfect Scream-inspired book to start off my first week as Slasher Book Month and to celebrate Scream. I have actually rated this a 5-star because, one, I love the cover, I love the writing style, I love the characters, I love the setting, the explanations of things, the cool little puns and referencing movies, books, characters and everything like that, and even rule suggestions that were done from Charlie's research. So it had everything in it. I think it took me probably 2 evenings to read this because it was just so quick-based and it wasn't confusing at all. It wasn't even confusing at all and stuff like that. You had, there were some funny moments in this and certain descriptives of certain moments were really creepy. The atmosphere was creepy, especially when you're on a remote island and it's rain, storms and everything. So everything to me was actually extremely perfect for me to read this book. It didn't actually feel like I was, I guess you can say it was almost like I was watching a horror movie but reading it. I know, pun intended, because of the title. But yeah, it was just so easy to get into. If you're a big fan of Scream and mastered figures and great characters, linkage to movies and books and stuff like that, then I would highly, highly recommend it because I just think you'll absolutely enjoy it. So this is my favourite book so far, 5 stars. And when I actually finished this book, I had to read the sequel. And I just read it straight back to back because I needed to know more about Charlie and more about her next stage that she was going through. I don't usually read first and second books or sometimes third back to back because sometimes it can be a little bit boring and you sort of like need to digest the first book a little bit to take it in a little bit more. But with this one, I can go straight to the second book and I was not bored of it. I mean, if the author had actually done so many books in the series, I would read them back to back because it was just that great in my opinion. So in this one, we follow it's How to Survive a Horror sequel. This does not follow a mastered figure in this one, so it's slightly different in this respect. This is actually slightly more witches in this theme. In a little village town, I would say, called the Devil's Punch Bowl. I have to admit, I mean, the Devil's Punch Bowl is obviously because of the shape, and that's why they call it there in that little village town. So after the events of the last one, Charlie has now left the boarding school. She is now with her mother and they drive from town to town because Charlie's obviously trying to get away from the, I would guess you say sort of like trauma from the first one. And so while they're actually doing that, the mother and Charlie go from one town to another, you do see their relationship develop a lot more because in the first book we only get like a couple of little snippets of things like on phone calls or little mail and stuff like that. So it was really, really great to explore their relationship in this because in the first book it does indicate that Charlie's father had passed sometime before she went to the island. So it's just them two. So what's great about it is that you can tell how much her mother actually cares about her daughter because she's willing to go from town to town and to also protect her daughter. And at the same time, she wants to sort of set down roots so that they can actually start living their life again, because if I recall rightly, they've been moving from place to place for about a year, if I remember rightly with that one. So I do remember that this is actually set in the UK to Scotland way, so this is it's basically a UK thing. So unfortunately, one day, Charlie and her mother's car broke down in this town village called the Devil's Punch Bowl. And unfortunately, the part that they needed for their car was going to take some while to turn up. So while they were there trying to, at the garage, to sort that out, there was a man called Mr. Gilbert who was there and suggested for the mum and Charlie to stay at one of his houses, cottages, that he actually had, so they can stay for a while free of charge, which I have to admit was actually really, really nice of him to do that, because Charlie's mum does eventually get a little job as a nurse. She's actually a qualified nurse, and Mr. Gilbert helped her. Well, I think he, if I remember rightly, he called in a favour. She had the interview and then it went from there. So she now had some money coming in. And on top of that, Charlie is now enrolling in school, in the local schooling, so she can get back to her education. And if I recall rightly, she's like a year behind because she didn't actually graduate, because in the first book she's actually a senior, and obviously the graduation ceremony probably didn't happen. We never actually saw that in the book. So obviously she needs to finish off her education, so she's doing that. And she does meet a couple of great friends in this one. I actually really like these friends and stuff like that, more so than certain characters in the first book. So I actually really love them. Bear in mind, both these books has a little bit of a I don't know if queer is the right word, but there are some lesbian characters. Even the main character is a lesbian, which I absolutely have no problem with anyone. If that's not your thing, then I wouldn't recommend that, because not everyone likes that kind of same-sex relationships. But me, it doesn't bother me. It was actually very nicely done with the premises, because I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to full-on spiciness. I like a small amount of spiciness, or just a really nice PDA sort of thingy in the books and stuff like that. And that was really nice. So yeah, the characters in this book, I actually really enjoyed. The friends, the relationship with the mother, and there are certain charms that was around this little town thing, where you had like a really nice cafe where one of the friends work. I don't want to say her name and all that, because I don't want to give it away too much. And then you also have this really nice bookshop, and I love it when you get to have like a bookshop and a book and stuff like that. And there was a really great character in that one as well, and so I quite enjoyed her character. And I did love that we learned a little bit of magical sort of folklore sort of thing in this book, because like I said, this is witches, and the town actually had like a witches trial. So we're getting the understanding of the history of the town, which I actually really like, because Charlie and actually thinks there's something really weird in this town. And it comes across, I guess, a little bit like a little snippet of Village of the Damned to Stepford Wives, I guess you can say, with how these witches are in this and what's going on in the town, because it does remind me a little bit of, I don't know if you've heard of Hot Fuzz with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, but it comes a little bit like that, where it's sort of like all for the greater good sort of thing. And so Charlie's having to contend with that. But she's also seeing ghosts in this as well, so she still has that gift. But there's something slightly different about the ghosts in this one compared to the first one, because in the first one, they were a certain way, where in this one, they didn't just sort of, they sort of like hung around a lot longer than the ghosts in the first one. It's not so much of a spoiler, I would say, but the ghosts in this were very tied to the town history and what's going on, and Charlie's sort of learning the slight differences between the usual ghosts she's used to these type of ghosts, because some ghosts, I guess you can say, sort of like tied into towns or houses, or sometimes they'll be tied to a person themselves. So, and in this one, it was, I guess you can say, a town itself based on the history. So you do get quite a bit of witch lore and everything, and I really love that because it reminds me of when I watch documentaries or I've read the odd books on Salem witch trials, and so it was quite interesting to see it in this book. So I do really enjoy that. So yeah, Charlie's still in a way the same sort of person she was in the first book. She is, I would say she's a little bit more wiser, I guess you can say, because of what she's been through and what she's learned. So she comes across as a little bit more, well, granted she is a little bit tougher, but I would say she's a little bit more wary now, especially of the people to trust or people to be around and stuff. And I like that because sometimes what you've been through can help teach you a lot about certain people in life or in this characters. So I love that aspect. And there was a scene in this that I didn't actually like, and that I was very annoyed about, to be honest. But when I read it to the very end, I actually understood why the author had done it that way. And so I guess you can say I forgave the author quite a bit for that, because I can't change your mind. I mean, the book's published, it's done, so sometimes you just have to trust that the author knows what they're actually doing, because I'm guessing they were, when they do a certain scene, they would have certain scenarios of how to do it to get to the end. So, yes, so obviously I had to trust her to do this. So, but yeah, the ending, I did really like the ending and stuff like that. So it was actually a very good book. I mean, it's a little bit bigger than the first one, and you get to get a bit more development on the relationship between Charlie and her mother. So I love that. And I love that it divulges a little bit more into the lore, because in the first book, we didn't have so much of a lore. I mean, there wasn't much in terms of the history of the boarding schools or the island and stuff like that. So it was nice that in this book we had a little bit more of that story into the actual plot as well. So it made it a bit more interesting. So there is an ending in this book that I actually really enjoyed. And I'm kind of hoping maybe it'll inspire the next book. Sorry, my dog is whining because he wants to leave the room. So, Dexter, do you want to come up? Come on. So yeah, I'm just going to finish this up and let him out. So yeah, I'm hoping that the ending of this book actually inspires a third book, because I did message Scarlett Dunmore on Instagram, because I found her on there. And I sent her a direct message to say that, one, I absolutely love the books, and is there a possibility that a third book would be coming out, because I wasn't sure if there was another book coming out, because when I checked, it never said anything about a third book. So she did message me back. I will put the screenshot on the video so you can see the message. I won't show you the whole thing because there are some spoilers in that. So I'm just going to show you the first couple. So yes, she is actually doing a third book, and did explain that it's actually going to be a lot wilder than the second book. and I'm really, really excited for it. She didn't state whether it was when it's coming out, so it could be the end of this year, it could be next year. That's fine. So I'm just hoping that she finishes it really quickly, because I really want to get on to the next one, because I just absolutely love this series. So this is a 5-star. Everything's 5-star, just the same as the first one. It was both incredible books for me. I just absolutely love them, and I thought it was the perfect way to begin the first week of my slasher book month, and the perfect way to celebrate the Scream's 30th anniversary with this book. So highly, highly recommend it if you are very much interested in it. And if you have read these books, or you are interested in them, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think if you've read them. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, press the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I will be having another video out for you next week. So until then, I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you for watching my video. I really, really appreciate that.